Close your eyes. Picture a little girl with golden hair. She wanders into a cottage in the woods. She tries 3 bowls of porridge, 3 chairs, 3 beds. The bears come home. She runs away. Everyone is fine. Sweet, innocent, harmless. This is the story you know. This is the story they teach children. But this is not the original story, not even close. Because the original intruder was not a little girl, was not innocent, was not named Goldilocks, and did not run away safely. Are you ready to know what really happened in that cottage? Because the truth involves an old woman breaking and entering, and a death that was considered justice. In 1837, the poet Robert Southey published a story called The Story of the 3 Bears. This was the first written version, the original fairy tale. But it bore almost no resemblance to the version children know today. There was no little girl, no golden hair, no innocent curiosity. Instead, there was an old woman. The narrator describes her very specifically, not as kind, not as harmless, but as ugly, as foul-mouthed, as wicked. The language is harsh, deliberate, designed to make readers hate her, to make them feel she deserves whatever happens. She is called a vagrant, a trespasser, an intruder, someone who does not belong, someone who violates sacred boundaries, someone who must be punished. The story begins the same way you remember. 3 bears live in a house in the woods. They make porridge for breakfast, but it is too hot, so they go for a walk while it cools. This is when the old woman arrives. She sees the house. The door is unlocked, and she enters. This is the crime. This is the violation. This is the moment that seals her fate. She tries the porridge. The first bowl is too hot, the second too cold, the third just right. She eats it all. Then she tries the chairs. The first too hard, the second too soft, the third just right. She sits in it. It breaks beneath her weight. Finally, she tries the beds. The first too hard, the second too soft, the third just right. She falls asleep. The bears return home. They discover the intrusion immediately. "Someone has been eating our porridge," says the great, huge bear. "Someone has been sitting in our chairs," says the middle-sized bear. "Someone has been lying in our beds," says the small, wee bear. "And she is still here." They find her asleep in the small bed. And this is where the story diverges completely from what you know. In the modern version, Goldilocks wakes. She sees the bears. She jumps up. She runs out the door. She escapes. She learns a lesson about respecting property. Everyone is fine. The end. But in Southey's original, the old woman wakes to find 3 bears surrounding her, staring at her. She is terrified, trapped. She jumps out of bed, runs to the window. The window is open. She does not hesitate. She leaps out from the upstairs window. And here, Southey gives us 2 possible endings. In one version, she breaks her neck in the fall, dies instantly, her body left in the forest as a warning. In the other version, she survives the jump, but runs into the woods, gets lost, is never seen again, implied to have died of exposure, of starvation, of being hunted by the bears. Either way, she dies. Either way, her death is presented as justice, as the natural consequence of her crime, as what happens to those who violate property. Why was the original story so brutal? Why an old woman instead of a child? Why death instead of escape? To understand, we must look at 1837 England, at Victorian society, at what terrified the middle class. Property rights were sacred in Victorian England. The home was inviolable. Trespassing was not just illegal, it was a moral crime. It was an attack on civilization itself. The rich lived in constant fear of the poor, of vagrants, of the unwashed masses, of those who might take what belonged to the respectable. Severe poverty created desperate people, people who would steal food, who would break into homes, who would violate the sanctity of property. The law was harsh, brutally harsh. Children were hanged for stealing bread, adults transported to Australia for taking a handkerchief. Property crime was punished with extreme severity, because property was more sacred than life. The old woman in Southey's story represents everything Victorians feared. She is poor, homeless, disrespectful. She enters a home that is not hers. She consumes food that does not belong to her. She uses furniture she has no right to touch. She sleeps in a bed she did not earn. Every action is a violation. Every choice is a crime. Every moment demands punishment. The story is teaching children a very specific lesson. Respect property boundaries. Never take what is not yours. Never enter where you are not invited, or you will die. This is not metaphorical. This is literal. The old woman dies for her trespass. Her death is deserved. Her punishment is just. The bears are the righteous property owners, defending their home, protecting what is theirs. They are not villains. They are victims. Victims of intrusion, of violation, of crime. The old woman is the villain, the criminal, the one who must be eliminated. But there is more darkness here. Why are the bears living in a house, sleeping in beds, eating with spoons? This is not natural. This is not how bears live. They are domesticated, civilized. They represent the proper order, the respectable class, the property owners. The old woman is wild, uncivilized, represents chaos, disorder, the threatening masses. The bears living like humans is the ideal. The old woman living like an animal is the danger. The story reinforces class boundaries. The bears, though animals, are civilized and respectable. The woman, though human, is animalistic and criminal. This inverts nature to make a point. Class matters more than species. Respectability matters more than humanity. Property matters more than life. Over the decades, the story changed. Publishers grew uncomfortable with the death, with the old woman, with the harsh punishment. Around 1850, the intruder became a fox, an actual animal, named Scrapefoot. This removed the human element, made the violation less political, made the punishment less disturbing. A fox trespassing in a bear's house, just animal behavior, not a commentary on class, not a warning about property, just a fable. But this version did not last. It was too abstract, too removed from the moral lesson. Then, around 1860, the intruder became a little girl. Silver hair at first, then later Goldilocks. This transformation was deliberate, calculated, designed to teach a gentler but still important lesson. A child makes mistakes. A child is curious. A child does not understand boundaries yet, but a child can learn. The death was removed. The escape was added. Goldilocks runs away. She learns her lesson. She grows from the experience. The story became about education instead of punishment, about learning instead of dying, about mistakes instead of crimes. But something was lost in the sanitization, the edge, the danger, the stark reality. The original story reflected real fears, real punishments, real consequences in Victorian England. The sanitized version removed that connection, made it abstract, made it safe, made it meaningless. We must ask why they changed it, why they could not keep the old woman, why they had to make the intruder innocent. The answer reveals Victorian attitudes toward children, toward women, toward age. An old woman trespassing and dying is justice. A child trespassing and learning is education. The old are responsible. The young are innocent. The old deserve punishment. The young deserve teaching. This reflects Victorian child-rearing philosophy. Children are innocent angels. Temporarily. They must be educated, shaped, controlled. But they are not evil. Not yet. They can be saved. The old woman cannot be saved. She is already formed, already criminal, already deserving of death. There is also a gender element. Victorian society feared old women, especially poor old women. They were seen as witches, as curses, as dangerous. Young girls were innocent, pretty, harmless. Old women were threatening, ugly, evil. Changing the intruder from old woman to young girl removed the threat, made the violation seem innocent, made the property owners seem harsh if they punished too severely. Goldilocks had to be young, had to be female, had to be blonde, to make her sympathetic, to make her savable, to make the story about education. An old woman could not serve that purpose. A boy could not serve that purpose. Only a young blonde girl could be innocent enough, could be pretty enough, could be pure enough to turn a story about property crime into a story about learning manners. The modern version teaches good lessons. Do not touch things that are not yours. Respect other people's homes. Think before you act. These are valuable, important, worth teaching, but they are neutered compared to the original. The original taught fear, taught consequences, taught that violation means death. One version trusts education, the other trusts punishment. One believes in teaching, the other believes in eliminating. One is democratic, the other is authoritarian. We chose the democratic version. We chose education over punishment. We chose life over death. But we erased the history. We forgot what the story was. We lost the connection to real fear, to real consequences, to the brutal reality of Victorian England. The old woman is still there, in the original text, in Robert Southey's 1837 version, still breaking into the cottage, still eating the porridge, still breaking the chair, still sleeping in the bed, still jumping from the window, still breaking her neck, still dying for her crime. Her death was justice. Her punishment was deserved. Her violation was unforgivable. This is what Victorian children learned. This is what they were taught to believe. This is the world they grew up in, where property mattered more than life, where trespassing meant death, where the poor were criminals by nature, where the old were beyond redemption. We are only 5 or 6 generations from that world. Your great-great-great-grandmother might have read the original version, might have accepted the old woman's death as normal, might have thought the punishment was just. That is how recent this brutality was, how close we are to that harsh reality, how thin our progress truly is. The next time you hear about Goldilocks, remember she replaced someone. Remember the original intruder died. Remember the story was about property, not porridge. Remember the bears represented civilization. Remember the old woman represented chaos. Remember that her death was the point, the moral, the lesson. And remember that we changed it, that we decided death was too harsh, that we chose education over execution, that we picked innocence over guilt. But both versions exist. Both teach lessons. Both reveal what we value. The original shows what Victorians valued: property, order, harsh punishment, class boundaries. The modern shows what we value: education, second chances, childhood innocence, restorative justice. The transformation of the story is the transformation of society, from authoritarian to democratic, from punishment to education, from death to learning. We should celebrate that change, but we must remember what we changed from, what the story was, what it taught, what it revealed about its world. The cottage still stands. The porridge still cools. The beds still wait. And the old woman still jumps. In the pages of old books, in the original tale, in the history we erased, still dying for her crime, still paying the ultimate price, still teaching the brutal lesson that in Victorian England, property was sacred, trespassing was unforgivable, and the punishment was death. No matter how hungry you were, no matter how cold, no matter how desperate, if you violated property, you died. That was justice. That was the world. That was the truth they tried